Oh. Okay. Have you for a minute, and then we'll have Zvi begin. We always love to have Dr. Fischer with us. Shoulders. What?
Oh, you're on the sheet.
So today's lunch is sponsored by Honey and Mendy Aaron in appreciation for all the work that the glasses and the rides do. You know, we're going to say in NATEP, we say Nasa Benishma. I know if I just say one little thing, there are 4 people that are always there all the time. They're always ready to roll up their sleeves, always willing to help. So we really appreciate you guys. It was just a good time to do this. Okay, and you see we have the thing for the NATEP breakfast coming up on June 11th. If you haven't signed up yet, please do so. And you can also sponsor as well. This is for Jay Hirschhorn. He's a nice guy. And you can see all the things that NATEP has just done in this last year. Okay, Zvi, so yours, thank you again. And
All right. Everybody agrees that the Torah was given on Shabbos. Everybody agrees that we arrived at Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. There is a disagreement on the day that we arrived. Was it Sunday or Monday? If you're looking for reading to do, Shvuah says you stay up nights or during the day. A wonderful reading would be the Gemara Shabbos, page 86, for about 3-4 pages, about everything that happened at Har Sinai. It's really fascinating reading. So the beginning of the shiur will be based on that. So just think about it. If we arrived on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, meaning on the 1st of Sivan, so if it was Sunday, okay, then Shabbos would be the 7th. That means we got the Torah on the 7th of Sivan. If we arrived Monday, then Shabbos would be the 6th of Sivan. Okay, just keep that in mind. Now, in my mind, I've changed around the order of my presentation. So I'm sorry for the confusion, but if you can turn to the back page, to page 2, to source 9, not to 9, to source 11, to source 11. So there's a pasuk in Yisro where it describes the events that took place before the Aseret HaDibros. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, lech el ha'am, v'kidashtam hayom u'machar, v'chipsu simlosam. So Hashem tells Moshe, I want you to prepare and to sanctify Bnei Yisrael in preparation for receiving the Torah. Hayom u'machar. So Rashi tells us Hayom was the 4th. So let's just go with that they came on Sunday, so it's easy. So Hayom is the 4th day, so it's Wednesday. They should prepare today, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I'll give the Torah on Friday, the 6th of Sivan. Okay? Good. Source 12. A few psukim later. Vayered Moshe minahar el ha'am. So Moshe got the instructions from Hashem, preparation 2 days. The 3rd day they'll get the Torah. Vaykadesh ha'am ve'chapsu simlosam. Vayomer el ha'am. So Moshe tells them now, right? He's relaying Hashem's information. Hayu necholim lishloshes yamim. Prepare for 3 days. Hashem told them 2 days. Moshe tells the nation, prepare for 3 days. Look at Rashi. In source 13, Hayu necholim lishloshes yamim. Be ready for a 3-day period. Lesov shloshes yamim. At the end of a 3-day period, hu yom revi'i, which is the 4th day, that's when you'll get the Torah. Moshe changed. It's akin, lahavdil. You know, the coach sends in the quarterback with a play. The quarterback gets to the line, and he audibles. He changes the plan. He changes the play, which happens a lot. But this, Hashem told him, Wednesday and Thursday they prepare. Friday they get the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. Moshe felt he needed an extra day of preparation. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos they'll get the Torah. And Hashem listened to Moshe because we got the Torah, we received the Torah on Shabbos, right? So that's a whole discussion which we're not going to get into. The whole itself of Moshe changed. Hashem told him one thing, and Moshe changed. This is an Eved Hashem, Ne'eman, who follows every word of Hashem. Chazal tell us that Moshe did 3 things of his own, midato. Like Rashi says, midato, he changed, and Hashem agreed with him on all 3 things. One is this one. Hashem followed Moshe's plan. There were 3 days of preparation, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Shabbos, we got it. The other thing he did was, if you see the pasuk out Tikshu Elisha, part of the preparations was not to have marital relations. And then after we got the Torah, it says, go back to your tents, which Rashi tells us that's a euphemism for now you can resume having relations with your spouse. Moshe didn't. Moshe was the only one. Moshe stopped. He did not have ever relations with Zipporah because for his own reasons, he felt that he was on a very high level. He would talk to Hashem at any time, whatever the reason was, and Hashem agreed with him. The third thing is he broke the luchos. Hashem sent him with luchos to give to the nation of Israel, right? Hashem knew that they had sinned. Hashem up in heaven told him, you better go down, your nation has sinned. But he sent them with the luchos, Moshe on his own, and Hashem said, Shkoyach, you did the right thing. So Moshe has that power. So again, Hashem's plan was for the Torah to be given on Vav Sivan, Friday. Moshe changed it, and we got it on Shabbos, Zayin Sivan. We celebrate Shavuos on Vav Sivan. According to the opinion that Rosh Chodesh Sivan was Sunday, and therefore we got it on the 7th day because of extra day of preparation, we celebrate Shavuos not when we got the Torah. We celebrate on Vav Sivan, but that opinion says we got it on 7th of Sivan. Now, in the Gemara, there is an opinion that we got it on Shabbos. Everybody agrees it was on Shabbos. The question is, was Shabbos the 6th or the 7th? So if Rosh Chodesh was Monday, we got it on the 6th. But if the Rosh Chodesh was on Sunday, then we got on the 7th. And yet we celebrate Shavuos always on the 6th. So there are two approaches, not two approaches, kind of two explanations of how is it. The Magen Avraham asks, wait a minute, in our Shmon Esrei on Shavuos and in Kiddush, we say, Zman, Matan, Torasenu, the time that we got the Torah. But he says, but it's not true. We didn't get the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. We got it on the 7th of Sivan. So how can we say Zman, Matan, Torasenu? So one answer is, which is really an amazing answer, that it reflects or hints to Yom Tov Sheni. You see, the Torah was not given in Israel. The Torah was given outside of Israel, either within the Sinai Peninsula, or I saw a recent report, they think now that Har Sinai was in northwest Saudi Arabia. So we celebrate, so the Chazal formulate our prayers because they weren't going to have Yom Tov Rishon, Yom Tov Sheni as two different prayers. So our prayers, even on Yom Tov Rishon, which is the 6th of Sivan, kind of a hint to Yom Tov Sheni, which is the 7th of Sivan. But Rav Asher Weiss says I'll get to that in a minute. Right. That's a very good point. Rav Asher Weiss explains that even though we didn't get the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, according to this opinion, the 6th of Sivan was a very powerful day for two reasons. One is that was Hashem's plan. Hashem's plan was to give the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. That was plan A. We got the Torah with plan B. So plan A, especially the planner of plan A, was God. So that has that's a very important day. And two, see, in Mitzrayim, we descended to very low level of spirituality, of Tumah. That's why Hashem didn't give us the Torah. The famous question, why did Hashem give us the Torah the day after we left Mitzrayim, or a week later? Why wait 7 weeks? Why wait till the 50th day? Right? So that's the whole idea of Sfiras HaOmer. From the Torah point of view, we had to ascend. And every day we count, we ascend. Rosh Hashanah says, the 50th day, we became pure. All the shmutz of Mitzrayim left us, the Zuhama left us, and we were ready to receive the Torah on the 6th. We completed our purification and our sanctification process on the 50th, which was on Friday. And we then got the Torah on the 51st day, which was Zion, Sivan, on Shabbos. But the 6 days a holy day, right? So, now to Mendy's point, I'm going to present to you two thoughts, which personally I think, the first point is true because it's in the Rambam and others. The second point is my own idea from my readings. They're 180 degrees apart, and I don't think they agree with each other, right? I just find this very interesting. The first opinion is Shavuos should be 1 day, even in Chutz La'aretz. Why? Because Pesach and Sukkot, I understand why it's 2 days, because it's the 15th. So to know when the 15th is, you have to know when the first is. Well, the first is decided by the Sanhedrin Yerushalayim. Now, if you live in Bavel, if you live by donkey, a 6-week trek, so there's no way, you're not going to find out 2 weeks later when to observe Pesach or Sukkot, because it's only 2 weeks after Rosh Chodesh, Tishrei or Nisan. So you're going to have to observe it on both days, because you're not sure. There's only a choice of 1 or 2 because a Jewish month is only 29 or 30 days. So you're going to keep the 15th and the 16th because you're not sure which one it is. But that's not true for Shavuos, because Shavuos is not dependent on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. It's dependent on what Pesach is, because once you know what Pesach is, the second day of Pesach we start counting, and on the 50th day is Shavuos, right? That's why, as Mendy said, that's why there's no date in the Torah for Shavuos. It's the only holiday that doesn't have a date, because you don't need a date, because the determination of Shavuos is the 50th day from the second day of Pesach, and the 16th of Nisan, right? So 50 days, by donkey, by camel, by whatever it is, you'll get to anywhere. So there was never any doubt about when Shavuos is. So the Rambam says, so why is Shavuos 2 days? Because of lo plug. The rabbis decided that the Shalosh Regalim is a unit, right? You notice in your prayers, right? And you don't say Mekadesh Yisrael v'Pesach, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Sukkos, Mekadesh v'Shavuos, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. It's a Zmanim, that's a unit. The Shalosh Regalim is a unit. So it wouldn't be sensible, the rabbis felt, the Pesach 2 days, Sukkot 2 days. Shavuos is only 1 day. So they said, no, we'll keep Shavuos also 2 days. So Shavuos technically should be 1 day even here, right? I mean, not even, just like in Israel, in Chutz La'aretz, but we have it 2 days for that. But now the other reason. I think Shavuos should be 2 days, even in Israel, because both the 6th and the 7th are super meaningful days and very holy days. The 6th is either we got the Torah on the 6th, according to the opinion that Rosh Chodesh was on Monday, right? Or we got the Torah on Shabbos, it was the 7th, but the 6th, it was plan A. Hashem planned to give the Torah on the 6th, so that's Yom HaShishi, right? The famous Hashishi from creation that alludes to getting it? Because all the other days, it's just Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi'i, Yom Sheni. The only one that says Yom Hashishi with a hey is Hashishi, alluding to the famous Hashishi. So the 6th is a very significant day. And the 7th, we got the Torah. So there's reason to say that both. Now, the way our calendar is set up, the 6th is always the 50th day. That's our calendar. It didn't used to be that way because when we used to determine Rosh Chodesh by witnesses, so any month could be 29 or 30 days, right? So if both Nisan and Iyar are 29 days, then Shavuos is going to be on the 7th. And if both Nisan and Iyar are going to be 30 days, then the Shavuos would be on the 5th day. Okay, but it's always on the 50th. Always on the 50th. Now, it's an amazing thing. I don't know if you're into codes, but there's an amazing thing, both in Sefer Bereshis and Sefer Shmos. If you start from the beginning and you look for the first time the letter Tav appears, right? You have Tav. Then count 49 letters. The 50th is a Vav. Then count 49 letters. The 50th is a Resh. Then count 49 letters, and the 50th is a Hey. There's something magical, mystical about Torah and 50. When we return the Torah on Monday, Thursday morning, and Shabbos Mincha, we read Tehillim chapter 24. Mi ya'aleh l'har Hashem. Har Hashem kind of is like a metaphor for Har Sinai. Mi ya'aleh l'har Hashem. Mi. Right? Mem Yud. 50. Right? There's something, and there's a lot more of those. So that's the first thing. Also, it's interesting. Something else. It answers. There's a famous question at the Haggadah in the Dayenu. So on the simplest level of Dayenu is that it's enough. Had you done A but you didn't do B, then that's enough. Ilu kavanu l'fnei hasinai v'lo nasalanu et Torah. Dayenu, that's enough. Dayenu, what do you mean? So what did you bring us to Sinai for? You brought us to Sinai to give us a Torah. Had you brought us to Sinai and not given us a Torah, oh, that would have been enough? No, that wouldn't have been enough. It would have been nothing. No. Now we understand. Had you brought us to Har Sinai, because there was a whole avodah of Har Sinai to purify. Had we gone through the 6th of Sivan on Friday, and on the 7th we have never gotten the Torah, Dayenu, because the 6th, that's the 50th day, that's the holiness of the 50th day. We were ready, that was our Kabbalah's all mitzvos. That was our Kabbalah's Torah. We became pure. So it has a lot of value to it. Okay. Next, now go back to page 1. So in Parsha Shlach in source 1, they talk there about the Nesachim. You brought a korban, you also brought flour offering and wine libations. Those are Nesachim. So the pasuk there says in Shlach in source 1 that a ger would also bring it. So it says it, right? It's a technical issue why you might have thought that a ger would not bring that he would only bring a korban but not bring the wine and the flour offerings. The Torah says kachem kager, just like you, the ger. The ger is the same way. So the Gemara in source 2 in Krisus tells you on a Jewish level, kachem ka'avosechem. So Rabbi says just like avosechem, lo nichnesu lebris ela b'mila u'tefila v'hatzas dam. Just like your ancestors, avosechem. Which ancestors? The one at Har Sinai. Converted via Mila, Tvila, and a Korban. So you have to understand, we underwent a national conversion. This is a little bit strange, a little hard to understand. We were not Jews before Har Sinai. We were Bnei Noach. Avram was not Jewish. Our avos were not Jewish, right? It's a little uncomfortable, but Har Sinai, we underwent a national conversion. Hachem Kager, just like the conversion at Har Sinai, involved Mila, Tvila, and a Korban. And as we'll see, Kabbalos mitzvos. So too, anytime a convert, a non-Jew wants to become Jewish, he has to go through those 4 steps. Mila, Tvila, a Korban, and Kabbalos ol mitzvos. So now let's go through each of them. Mila. There was no Mila at Har Sinai. The Mila was in Mitzrayim. Just before we left, right? So in the beginning of Nisan, the nation of Israel, the men underwent Mila. For 2 reasons. One is to be able to eat the Korban Pesach, right? They slaughtered the sheep in the afternoon of the 14th. They ate it that night, the night of the 15th, and they left Mitzrayim the following day on the 15th. You can't eat a Korban Pesach unless you're circumcised. Most of them were not circumcised. So, but that Mila was also for the conversion, right? You have to do it. The Mila was done also for the purpose of converting, which they were going to do 7 weeks later. Tvila. It doesn't say at Har Sinai they were Tovel, but what it does say is, and I'm referring now to source 3. In Parshas Mishpatim, right, we have Yisro, which has the Aseres HaDibros, and some of the things that we saw before, the preparation. And then we go into Mishpatim, which goes through all the civil laws. And then at the end of Mishpatim is a famous chapter 24, which tells you things that happened at Har Sinai that weren't told you in Yisro. So those are psukim I give you in source 3. So one of them says in Pasuk Ches, Vayikach Moshe Hadam Vayizrok al Ha'am. They offered korbanos. There's always a lot of blood when you shecht an animal and you offer a korban. Moshe took that blood and he sprinkled Bnei Yisrael with the blood. Not very comfortable, but okay, you sprinkled the Bnei Yisrael with the blood. And Chazal have a tradition that when there's sprinkling, there's always a tefillah before that. For instance, a tmei mace, somebody who comes in contact with a dead person, with a corpse, or in the same room with a corpse. So he's going to have to purify himself by being sprinkled on with the ashes of the paraduma mixed with water. Before that sprinkling, he has to go tovel in a mikvah or in a spring body of water. And the korban, it says in Pasuk Hey, Vayizbechu zvachim shlamim l'Hashem parim. So I know you're asking. The Gemara in Krisa says, just like that, the present convert has to do the same. The pattern is after the national conversion. They offer a korban. Oh, so you can't have converts nowadays because we can't have a korban? So Chazal say, no, you can. When you can offer a korban, you must. But when you can't, it doesn't prevent you from converting. And that's from a pasuk in source 4. It's the same pasuk. You have the word ledoro sechem in both, but the Gemara Chazal learned it from here. It says v'chiyagur ger or asher b'sochem ledoro sechem. If you'll have a convert among you, ledoro sechem. Ledoro sechem mean always for future generations. In other way, for forever. So the Torah tells you they'll be gerim forever. So even at a time when there's no Beis Mikdash, when you can't offer a korban. It used to be, after the destruction of the Second Temple, if you want to convert, the rabbis required you to set aside money for korban. That when Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, that money will be used for the korban. So it's as if you started the process. But then Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, who made many enactments, many takanos, one of them was, don't do that. Because they saw that it wasn't smart to have hekdesh money. Because if you designate that for a korban, that money can't be used to go buy a Coke. So to have in your house hekdesh money was not a good idea, because one time you'll mistake it, somebody won't know what that money was for, and you'll use it, and that's a biblical prohibition. So nowadays we don't do that. It is the belief is that when the Beis Hamikdash, all converts will bring a korban. And there's a 4th step, which is the Kabbalos mitzvos. The ger has to accept upon himself to accept the mitzvos. That's done when the ger starts the process. The rabbi says, I want to become Jewish. You understand there's a lot of things to being Jewish. It's not just all, partying and eating. I know you see that the Jews do that all the time and celebrate how. There are a lot of restrictions and all that. So he has to accept that. And then there's a formal ceremony by the Beis Din right before the ger is tovel. So before he is a ger, before he's over, the Beis Din presents him, gives him a few mitzvos which are easy, some mitzvos which are hard, and then says, you accept all of this? And he says, yes. How do we know about Kabbalah's mitzvos? That was patterned after Har Sinai. Again, look at source 3 at Pasuk Zayin, the famous we will do and we will hear, meaning they accepted Hashem's mitzvos. That's Kabbalah's all mitzvos, so we do that too. How do we know you need a Beis Din? So that's learned from source 5. Also a pasuk in Shlach. Torah achas umishpat echad yelachem belager hagar b'lechem. And the rabbis learned umishpat, law, that refers to a Beis Din. So an interesting point is, if we pattern our present gerus to the national gerus at Har Sinai, there was no Beis Din at Har Sinai. So why do we say there's a Beis Din now? The answer is, see, a gerus is a bris. It's a covenant between the person and Hashem. When you have a covenant, both parties have to be there. So at Sinai, Hashem was there. There was what's called Hashra Shechina or Gilu Shechina. It was the greatest Hashra Shechina in Jewish history. We've never had anything like that since. Hashem's presence was palpable. You didn't need a Beis Din then. What does the Beis Din do now? So you could say, oh, the Beis Din represents Hashem. No, it's sharper than that. It's deeper than that. The Beis Din at the Mila, at the Tvila, at the Kabbalah Sol Mitzvos ensures that there is Hashra Shechina. The presence of the Beis Din ensures that Hashem is there. Okay? How do we know that? So that's based on source 6. This we say every Tuesday morning. The Shiur Shel Yom is chapter 82 for Tuesday. So the first pasuk of chapter 82 is Mizmor LaAsaf. Elokim, that's God. Nitzav stands ba'adas keil, in the assembly of God. What's an assembly of God? The rabbis see that as a reference to Beis Din. So when there are 3 rabbis forming a Beis Din and adjudicating, Hashem's presence is there. Hashem's presence is there, giving them siyata d'shmaya, assisting them to reach a proper decision. Bekerev Elohim yishpot, among Elohim. Now I say Elohim because that's not God. That's Elohim. Oftentimes is judges. Among judges, yishpot, Hashem will judge. So nowadays the Beis Din ensures that, so to speak, Hashem comes down just like he did at Sinai. Now, we saw that there were psukim in Yisro, Aseres HaDibros, and then we saw Mishpatim. Yisro comes first, Mishpatim comes, right? So there's a fascinating machlokes between Rashi and Ramban on the order. So you'll say, what's the machlokes? Yisro is first, Mishpatim is second. Not necessarily. Look at source 7. Yisro, which is Aseres HaDibros, chapter 20 of Yisro, is Matan Torah. So that occurred either on the 6th or 7th, according to the machlokes. Again, everybody agrees it occurred on Shabbos. The only question is, was Shabbos the 6th or 7th of Sivan? Says Rashi, Mishpatim, that chapter 24, source 3, the korbanos, the sprinkling of blood, Nasev Nishma, occurred on the 5th of Sivan, the day before Aseres HaDibros. So you'll say, that doesn't make sense. Yisro is presented first. Says Rashi, Ein Mukdam U'Mochar b'Torah. The Torah is not necessarily chronological. Most of the time it is, even according to Rashi, but it doesn't have to be. In this case, according to Rashi, it's not chronological. Meaning, according to Rashi, we underwent the conversion on the 5th of Sivan, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, before receiving the Aseres HaDibros. We became full Jews before Matan Torah. We converted. We became full Jews. We were imbued with Kedushas Yisrael before. And then the day after, either 6th or 7th of Sivan, there was a Aseret Dibros, the Torah. What was that? It was a national Torah learning. It was a national Talmud Torah now that we were fully Jews. Says the Ramban, no. It's chronological. Says the Ramban, first you had Aseret Dibros. Aseret Dibros was the first step in our conversion. That occurs on the 6th or 7th of Sivan. We received the Torah that was akin to Kabbalah Sol Mitzvos. It was only the first step. But the korbanos, the sprinkling of the blood, necessary for the conversion, that was in Mishpatim, that occurred after. First you have Yisro, and then Mishpatim. That occurred on the 8th of Sivan, 9th of Sivan, 10th of Sivan. According to the Ramban, right? You have to really absorb this. According to the Ramban, Matan Torah was as non-Jews. We had not fully converted yet. Matan Torah, Aseret Dibros in Yisro, was to Bnei Noach, people who had said, we will do it, but no Tefillah yet. They had the Milah in Mitzrayim, but no Tefillah yet and no Korban. So we received the Torah as a ger to be, the first step. And then after that, we completed the gerus, right? Amazing. Okay, now turn back to page 2. I want to present something to you, which I saw for the first time recently. So I figured I'd share that with you. I always get excited when I see something, an explanation of something which is totally different. And so if it's different for you, then that's good. And if it's not, you've heard it before, then that's okay. The review is always good. There's a famous Gemara in source 8, Psachim 68. There's a machlok for Rav Eliezer and Rav Yeshua, how you should conduct yourself on Yom Tov. So Rav Eliezer says, choose. Either spend the whole day learning or the whole day eating. Either one would be fine. It sounds funny to us, right? But okay. Rav Yeshua says, no, come on. It's half and half. Like what we do. Half the time we're in shul and we learn, half the time we eat. Okay, that's what Rav Yeshua says. Where did they get this idea from? So Rav Yochanan says they learned it from the same psukim. Both Rav Eliezer and Rav Yeshua have the same Torah. So there's a pasuk in Re'eh. Rather than reading inside, I'm just paraphrasing for you. There's a pasuk in Re'eh which says, it's kind of in the middle of source 8, Atzeres Lashem Elokecha. Just as an aside, the Torah uses the word Atzeres, which means the end, for 2 holidays. Zvi Shel Pesach and Shmini Atzeres. The Torah never calls Shavuos Atzeres. We use the term Atzeres for Shavuos. Chazal, the rabbis. The Torah never refers to, and there are reasons for that. If this time, maybe I'll get into it. But so Atzeres Lashem Elokecha is a pasuk in the Re'eh about Shvi Shel Pesach. Shvi Shel Pesach should be Lashem Elokecha. Now, it doesn't only Shvi Shel Pesach. Shvi Shel Pesach is an example of all Yom Tov should be Lashem Elokecha. Then there's a pasuk in Pinchas which talks about Shmini Atzeres. It says Atzeres Tiyeh Lachem. Atzeres should be to you, for you. So one says Hashem. So Rav Eliezer says, okay, Lashem, Lachem. So choose. What do you want to do? How do you want to spend Yom Tov? Lashem, only godly things, or Lachem, eat all day. And Yeshua says, no. There are 2 psukim there. Split the day. Part of the day should be in shul and you're learning, and part of the day should be eating. Now listen. Now look at the last paragraph in source 8. Amar Rav Eliezer. So Rav Eliezer says, but hakol modim ba'atzeres. Now here the Gemara is talking. So the Gemara calls Shavuos Atzeres. Okay? Torah Sheba'al Peh calls Shavuos Atzeres, not Torah Shebichtav. Everybody agrees that on Shavuos, the ba'inan lami lachem, that you need lachem on Shavuos. You must eat. You must have a festive meal on Shavuos. That is so counterintuitive, right? On the day that we got the Torah, I would have said, that's the day they spend the whole day learning, right? And Hakol Modim, even Rabbi Lezer, who says on Sukkot and Pesach, if you want to, spend the whole day learning. Oh, but Shavuos, you can't spend the whole day learning. You have to have a festive meal on Shavuos. Doesn't make sense. My Taiba, says the Gemara, what's the reason? Yom Shenitna B'Torahu. Because it's the day that was given, the Torah was given. The day that was given, the Torah was given, spend the whole day with the Torah. What are you doing having a 3-hour feast? So Rashi already says, because Rashi says on this, I didn't quote that, you should be happy with your feast. So that's the standard understanding. And the right, because we're physical people, the way we show happiness is by stuff on our faces. So show that you're happy, and especially on a day like this, even more so than on Pesach and Sukkot. But now let's tie something in, which I think is really very, very sharp. There's a pasuk in source 9 in Mishpatim, that famous chapter, which fills in a lot of things that happen at Har Sinai, which chapter 19 and 20 in Yisro do not. The pasuk says, "Velatzilei bnei Yisrael." Atzilei means the nobles, and Chazal tells us the Atzilim here, Nadav and Avihu. This is before they were killed. Nadav and Avihu and the nobles, and the Zakanim. These are the nobles, the top echelon, the holiest people. Lo shalach. Hashem did not send his hand. Now there are different ways to understand this, but the basic understanding with Rashi means Hashem did not send his hand to punish them. He did not punish them. That deserved punishment, and Hashem chose not to punish them at this time, at Har Sinai. Why did we're talking about the holiest people? Why did they deserve to be punished? Because it was Har Sinai, there was Hashras Shechina, Hashem was palpable, the presence, and they were sitting, stuffing their face. Right? It's as if like you're eating your tuna fish sandwich, right? And the Gadol Ador comes in to the room, and you're eating. Hi, how you doing? And you're eating your tuna fish sandwich, right? It was chutzpah. It was very crass. Hashem, vayechazu, they were viewing Hashem, and they're eating. It's not nice. It's not respectful. They deserve to be punished. Hashem did not punish them. So the question is the echelon, the holiest people, Nadav and Avihu were gonna, if not for whatever happened to them, they were gonna take over for Aaron and Moshe. And the Zakanim, that's the way they acted. Impossible. So Ramban says it can't be. It means that they offered korbanos to the Har Sinai, and when you offer shlamim, the owner eats part of that shlamim. So this was a religious experience, meaning it wasn't Vayechazu like Elokim, and yet they ate. No, they saw God and they ate as a religious experience, like a Sudas mitzvah. Says the Chassam Sofer's son. Look at source 11, source 10. There's a pasuk in Yisro. Moshe brings all the people. And they stood at the foot of the mountain. But Chazal said, "Betachti sahar" sounds like they stood underneath the mountain. How do you stand underneath the mountain? So there's a famous medrash that says Hashem told them, "Here's my Torah. Here are all the restrictions, right? All the prohibitions. I want you to accept it. And if you don't," then he lifted the mountain, held it over them, and he said, "And if you don't accept it, I will drop the mountain, bury you, you'll die." Now, what do you say? So Bnei Yisrael says, "Okay, we'll take the Torah," right? They were forced into it. So that's a whole shiur, which I'm sure will be covered at one of the shiurim. Shavuos, that's always a popular shiur. Says the Chassam Sofer, yeah, for the masses, because the masses, They were ready to accept the Torah, but not so happily. I mean, there were good things about the Torah, but so many restrictions, so many, if you do this, you'll be killed. And there are so many, prohibitions. And so they were not so happy at receiving the Torah. So they had to be forced, because Hashem, like a parent to a child, he knew what was good for them, right? When you take your 4-year-old to the doctor for a shot, he doesn't want it. He thinks you're the worst, you're the cruelest, right? But that's the best thing for him. So Hashem knew that's the best thing for us. But the Tzilei Ha'am, the nobles, they understood what the Torah was. And they accepted the Torah with all its restrictions and all the prohibitions with great joy. They didn't need the mountain over their head. Said the Ksafsover, that's what the pasuk means. V'latzilei bnei Yisrael lo shalach yado. To the nobles, Hashem did not have to send his, he did not have to hold the mountain over them. They said Nasa v'nishma happily, gladly. The masses, who were not on a high level, said, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Oh, I don't know. I'm not, this is not all that, So they had to be forced into it. So that's what it means. It's a totally different explanation. And now we can understand why even Rabbi Eliezer would say on Shavuos, when we got the Torah, you have to have a festive meal. You see, if we only spent the day learning, it would mean that we accepted the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, and we accepted the all the mitzvos, but it doesn't show that we're happy about it. There are many things that I do out of a sense of obligation, out of a sense of responsibility, but I'm not thrilled to do it, or I'm not overly happy to do it. On Shavuos, it's not enough that you show that you've accepted the obligation. You have to show that you're happy about it. And the way we, physical people, because we have a guf, we're not just an neshama, show that we are doing it and we're happy about it, is by having a festive meal, by having the 2 pieces of cheesecake, right? Then you can see I'm happy, right? If I'm just sitting learning all day, is he happy? I don't know if he's happy. He's learning, okay? So that's the thing to that. Right. That's a great analogy. I like that very much. That's very good. That's perfect.
Repeat what she said, please.
Oh, she said that it's also a lesson in davening. Whether you davening in a rote way, I mean, you have to daven. So you just say the words, or you do it with kavanah, or whether you do it with passion, with energy, with intention, understanding what you're doing. I just want to finish with some very practical things. How long were we at Har Sinai? We arrived at Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. We left the following year on the 20th of Iyar. We were encamped at Har Sinai for 11 months and 20 days. Sometimes you lose perspective. How long were we at Har Sinai? Well, we got the Torah and then, okay. Har Sinai has 2 derivations. One is Sina, sin, nun, aleph, hey, hatred, because it engendered hatred by the non-Jews that we received the Torah, but not so much because we received the Torah, because they also offered the Torah, but because of that, we became Hashem's favorites. We became Ava Nivchar, the chosen nation. They never forgave us for that. They still don't forgive us for that. And Sinai also is from the word sneh, the burning bush. That's what the Samach, because the pasuk in Shmos, when Moshe first meets Hashem, says, "Vayavo el hara Elokim choreva." The other name for Sinai, Har Sinai is Har Elokim, and also Chorev. The burning bush was Har Sinai. That's where Moshe was. So Sinai is a reference to the sneh. And the third last thing I just want to finish with is Chazal on a purely Megillah Srus is just a beautiful sefer, a beautiful story with some really beautifully emotional and passionate lessons. But being a totally, if you want to be very Litvish about it, There are 4 practical things that we learned from Megillas Rus as halachic sources. One is, the most famous one is Moavi velo Moavis, because the Torah tells you that a Moavi, if you come from the nation of Moab, you cannot marry a full Jew. You can convert, anybody can convert. The Isra of Lo Yavo Bikal Hashem is not what it sounds like. It sounds like you cannot enter the nation, which means to convert. You're allowed to convert. Anybody can convert. But there are restrictions on some nations that they cannot marry a full Jew, meaning they would have to marry another convert, but not a full Jew. Sometimes forever, sometimes for just a few generations. So a Moavi can never marry. But we learned from Rus, who was a Moaviyah, that only applies to male Moavi. Doesn't sound very fair, but that's the way it is. Moaviyah, you convert, you can marry the Gadol Ador, which she did. She converted and she married, right? I mean, whether she converted Moab or not is a whole discussion, but she certainly was converted before she married Boaz. Okay, and the other one is what's called the Kinyan Sudar or Kinyan Chalipin. Sudar means a scarf. Whenever you acquire something, you have to make a kinyan on it. So usually, let's suppose a portable object. I have to lift it. I have to kind of draw it to myself. But let's suppose the object is not here, right? So let's suppose you want to sell me something, but that object, that book, you want to sell me a book, but that book you have it at home. So you can do a kunyan sudar, which means if the buyer gives the seller an object in exchange for that object, that's kinyan chalipin, to exchange. That object now becomes mine. And that's a common kinyan. We do it in mechiras chametz, right? You want to sell, I own chametz, I own bread. I want to get rid of it for Pesach, so I can go to a non-Jew and sell it to him, but it's much easier for me to go to the rabbi. Well, the rabbi has to buy my bread so he can act as my agent then to sell it to a non-Jew. So the rabbi has to buy my bread. But, I forgot to bring my bread to you, rabbi, right? I left my bread at home. So the rabbi is the buyer. He gives me a pen. I lift a pen. Bingo. As soon as I lift a pen, my bread is his. We've just exchanged the pen for the bread. So he owns my bread. And now he can decide it's his bread. He can do whatever he wants with it. He wants to keep it over Pesach. That's not a good idea. So he'll sell it to a non-Jew. Okay, but that's Kinyan Sudar. So Naomi had a field which had been the property of Elimelech, her husband, who had since died, and this was going to be sold. So it had to be sold. So land also, you can't carry the piece of land with you. So the pasuk there says towards the beginning of chapter 4 that Boaz offered his uncle to buy the field, Ploni Almoni, to buy the field. So he took off his shoe. In those days, that was the object. Instead of a pen, it was a shoe. You don't always have a pen with you, but you always have a shoe. So he took off his shoe and he said, "Okay, I'll give you the shoe, right? And you'll obtain the field." But he for whatever reason he didn't want to do it. That's a whole story of chapter 4. And the fourth thing is Boaz gathered 10 men. Pasuk says the rabbis learned that for Sheva brachos, for a wedding, and we do it for the Sheva brachos also during the week. But the Sheva brachos at the chuppah, you have to have a minyan. You have to have 10 men. Okay, I think that's it. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As always, a beautiful
Yes,
show.
yeah.